Thanks for joining us at the Pyramid Science Foundation Saturday live stream series. Today we have a very special show on tap. It's impromptu. It's a chance for you to come on and ask the experts your pressing questions about pyramid, sacred geometry, and the benefits it has and how to optimize your Stargate Pyramid and Pyramid Search products. So without further ado, Charlie Ziese and Lisa Richards. Dina is here too. You said you had some questions.
I do have one that someone else brought up. So in the study with the Russian, in Russia with the prisoners,
Yeah.
was that actually salt, like table salt, or was that something else?
There are a couple of different interpretations. I've seen people say that it was pieces of granite, and I've also seen that it was table salt. I don't know which is right, but I believe that it was the table salt. But I have seen that question, and it's apparently a translation maybe issue. But I've read enough to where I think that it was table salt. That's all I can say. Not pieces of granite. Although there are certainly other studies in the research that point to the fact that they've used granite, energized it, and then put those out in circles or in areas, public areas, and it's dramatically improved or reduced, I should say, infectious disease. So could be either one.
Probably would work. Granite. Why granite?
Well, that's it. It would work the same because granite, whether it's granite or table salt, you're working with crystals, and that gets us into Lisa's realm. But that's what's going to amplify these energy fields. So it really doesn't matter if it's granite or table salt.
Yeah. Will you go over, Charlie, that experiment so people know what you're talking about?
A little bit of background.
Yeah, sure. The Russian government took table salt and stored it in one of the pyramids that Dr. Gallad had made. And what they did was to distribute the table salt to 20 different prisons throughout the Russian prison system. And they gave it to about 6,000 inmates. And so the results basically were that every one of the wardens at these prisons, that they all said in effect that they wondered what had happened to their prison populations, almost like they'd switched them out, because the level of violence behavior virtually went to zero. So there was something that was really profound that was going on with the prison population. And similar results were achieved using mice who were, and Dina, here's an example. I believe in that case, they actually exposed the mice to rock or granite that had been put into the pyramid. And when they put those pieces of granite into their habitat, again, they had a definition for violent behavior that was, them attacking each other and so forth, but that also went virtually to nothing. So there's clearly something that's been going on with or that happens. And, our own research when we were going to expos in 2019, virtually, other than saying that they felt something, the most common response after people sat in the pyramid was that they were peaceful. So, there's certainly true for me as well.
And when you say table salt and they gave it to prisoners, are the prisoners ingesting the table salt? No,
just using it. Yeah, they cooked their food with the table salt, and they also put it on, used it inside the table salt shakers, but that was
unknowingly. I'm sure they didn't inform the prisoners of it. But.
No, I don't think they did, but it had a dramatic impact. So And that's pretty profound. I mean, that's really profound research. when you
Yeah,
think
it is.
about it. We could use, we could certainly, I could see using this for, in a context, or just pyramids, period, to try to help with violent behavior. Can be used with addictions and all sorts of things as well, but yeah. So.
Oh, thanks for this valuable information. Sorry, Dina.
That's all right.
I
Go
just want to
ahead.
comment on this. I'm gonna put, just like now, after we're done with this, my supply of analyzed salt with intention to, obviously we don't have violence problem issues in my household, but addiction is definitely something that could be improved.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah. So, it's like whether it's table salt, I think you could probably achieve the same results with your
Sugar is also
maybe.
we can
She has so many ideas now.
That's
That
right.
is the most addictive substance.
That's right. Maybe I'd hate
Wow.
sugar
In my
after
life.
I put it in the
Well,
pyramid.
the pyramid also neutralizes the toxicity of products, and sugar to me is like a drug. It's like an addictive drug. It lights up
It
the
is
same
drug, it is.
chemicals. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe we should start storing our sugar under it. Maybe it'll be better for us then.
That's
'Cause I
right.
can't seem
That's
to
right.
stop eating it.
Yeah, one can only hope.
Charlie, I have a question for you.
Yes.
How did you end up getting into pyramid energy?
Well, that basically came from David Wilcock. I had read the Synchronicity Key back whenever it was published. That was probably around 9-10 years ago, I think. And it had a chapter on the Russian pyramids and, brought up a lot of really fascinating information. But the real driver was the 10-part series that David Wilcock did on Gaia TV on his wisdom teaching series on the Russian pyramids. And there he really went into much greater detail about the scientific research that had been done in Russia. And that's, as you all know, I mean, that's kind of my background. I like to look at things from a mathematics and scientific standpoint to verify them. And I started looking into the geometry of the pyramids, started trying to make them. Once I got the geometry right, started doing experiments. The experiments all that I could do all were, verifying what the Russians had done. So, one thing led to another. But that's where it all started, really, was David Wilcock. And, I wish in some respects that David had stuck with pyramids rather than some of the other things that he branched off into in the last few years, because I think he's sort of, I don't know if he's lost focus on this. I know he's been doing some stuff on pyramids recently, but anyway, I think that going forward, that's the whole idea of this group is to, and the foundation is to get more people interested in helping with research. So, but that's the way I got started.
Were you into like spirituality and stuff at that point too, or before that?
Oh, you really want a life history then? Okay.
Yes.
All right. The universe usually it starts with a little tap on the head, and then they get the 2x4s out and so forth. But I started to realize back as early as I'd say the mid 1980s, which is a long time ago, but that my Wall Street career was not as, it wasn't satisfying in any real extent. The very first kind of move into that awakening, I read a book called Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain. And that's what that book started to open up my mind. I started reading other books and other authors. I went through a divorce at that point of separation when I moved to Pittsburgh in the late, let me get my numbers right here, mid-90s. I ended up going to a metaphysical church called the Church of Religious Science. They're now called Centers for Spiritual Living. And they taught the teachings of a 20th century metaphysician named Ernest Holmes. And he was one of the New Thought giants of the 20th century. And so that's where I really started to get an understanding that thoughts created my experience. And so as I guess, I don't know who fired who, whether Wall Street fired me or I fired them, but when the energies just wouldn't work anymore together, I started to really branch out into this, and this was a perfect timing for me because this study of pyramids really encompasses not only my interest in math and science, but spirituality, and they all do meld together and come together once you start to realize that the universe is ordered. It gives back to you exactly what you put into it, and it's done with mathematical, geometric, harmonic precision. So that's kind of a short version of how I got to where I am now. So, and I'm real happy not to be on Wall Street anymore. I'll tell you that. So,
I bet that's a big switch.
yeah, it is. It is. And I'm grateful for every, I think of an important thing for everybody to know is it doesn't matter where you are right now. I was pretty old to be starting something new like this in my life and taking up a new career like this. But you need all of the experiences as we all awaken in our own way. We need those experiences where the universe does, tap us on the shoulder and then beat us over the head with a 2x4 eventually when we don't listen. And, for those of you who've seen pictures of me, I sent Allie a couple pictures of me from about 10 years ago. And, I don't put them up too much on mine anymore, but, I was severely overweight, and Allie's nice enough to say it, but there's some truth to it. I mean, I actually think I look younger now than I did,
He's aging backwards.
5 or 10
Yes.
years ago. So it
You
definitely,
definitely do.
yeah, definitely making a difference. And as somebody pointed out a couple of weeks ago, my silver gray hair is returning to its natural color now. And I don't have as much of it as I like. It's going away, but what's there is actually returning to its natural brown color. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
that's a pretty amazing thing.
Yes,
So.
I always said to my kids that when it was time for me to be old, they would have a cure for it. So I really think that we found it already.
Well, well, Dr. Galad actually says on pyramids.ru that he feels that life expectancy of humans around these pyramids is going to go up by 10 to 15 years. So no way to prove that in the short run, but that's his belief based on his own experience, and so time will tell. But I have to say, I mean, I am probably in as good a physical condition as I've been in since I was maybe in my 30s. I had lots of bad habits, eating habits, drinking habits. I quit smoking when I was about 30, but still, I had negative thoughts. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't drinking good water. You get the idea. I mean, it's all part of the process. But yeah.
Well, even working on Wall Street, you have to be ruthless, most
Well,
of the time.
and that was not my nature. And so you're right. I think profit and money and ego have to take the forefront in that kind of a career. And I was fortunate. I think one reason why I enjoy what I'm doing now, I love the pure research of getting into sacred geometry and harmonics and math and all that stuff. But I was good at that on Wall Street as well. And so I early on had some pretty major parts to play in creating mortgage-backed securities, for example. I mean, I put that structure together. Now that brought the world down in '08. And so it brought me down with it because I still was an empath or, and I had a conscience. And that's something that unfortunately not too many people on Wall Street can stay there very long if you have a conscience. So, but anyway, you get past it.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Oh,
Dina has a question.
okay.
Dina, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I had a quick comment about the granite that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure that the Russian scientists did that, with a reason, because I don't think they would randomly just pick granite, I'm assuming.
Right.
And I'm not an expert on rocks and crystals, but I did live in Arizona for 20 years. And there's a little area that's very charming. It's just got this energy about it. And it's just all these granite mountains, but they're not really, big. They're like boulders and collection of rocks. And it's called Granite Dells.
Okay.
And the energy there was just, I just loved passing through. I don't even consider living in that area. But one time I was in a rock shop and the lady said something about she wanted to leave Sedona because of all the red rock that was full of crystal. She felt it was too airy of an energy. And she said, I got to go somewhere where there's granite because she said it was grounding.
Oh,
So maybe Lisa knows more about that, but maybe there was something grounding in that. I'm curious to know why they chose.
Well, I think it's
Granite.
also not only because it's grounding, but because it has a high content of quartz in it as well.
Right.
And quartz is very programmable.
Mhm.
A lot of the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, or not hieroglyphs, but they're monuments and stuff. They're all made, most of them, with granite limestone outside to encase it.
Interesting.
But the granite on the inside to produce like the energy. So I use granite crystals sometimes too in my capstones. I have a whole assortment of different crystals, but sometimes I'm called for different people to use the granite. I took a trip to Italy probably about 3 years ago. And I went to the island of Sardinia, and they actually had this place called the Tombs of the Giants, and they were made with granite as well. So a lot of the old ancient architecture is made with granite. And it's just, I think, because, Charlie has talked about the Tartarian Empire a lot, and mainly how, many years ago, we were connected to an energetic grid, free energy, so I think that was important at that time to use this type of a crystal, this type of building material to enhance that free energetic grid that we all lived on. And has been demolished since. So, but the granite is a very hard stone it's one of the hardest stones to even drill through. And, that's how you can prove that we were lied to, because there's drill marks in it, like mechanical drill marks in a lot of these. They're like, the precision is so tight between blocks, you can't even put a piece of paper in between a crack, because there's not a crack to put it in, because they're just so tightly fitted. I mean, they withstand natural disasters, so it's a great durable material, but it's also one of the most powerful materials in the world. I have a huge chunk of, I don't have it in here because we just moved a few months ago, and a lot of my crystals are still in boxes, but I have a huge chunk of red granite. And granite has a masculine energy to it, but the red granite specifically, I use to anchor my energy, anchor the energy of the pyramid. I usually put it right underneath my chair. So it does have a very grounding effect as well, and really connects you, I think, not only to the earth itself, but like very, very deep into our past as well, is what I get from it.
Thank you very much. That I had no idea that the ancient monuments were actually underneath the limestone was granite.
Yeah.
and all of that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the pyramids of Giza are all made from granite.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah, they
Yep.
did have an original casing on the outside of limestone, which
Right.
most of those have been taken and reused for different structures.
mhm.
You know, the granite is just so, it's still there. But somebody said the other day, the only reason the pyramids are standing is because they couldn't, they were just too big for them to dismantle and put in a museum. And, you know, that's really true.
Yeah. One other question, that's a little unrelated, but when you do charge things like we were talking about salt or sugar or water, do you find that just a few hours or a few days, or how long do you normally take to charge something that you find is sufficiently, energized?
Yeah, even just after a few hours, you're gonna get a charge. Just use your pendulum at first and do a Bovis life force reading on it. I recommend at least 3 days. That's what I found, that I can really, like, if I go take a drink of the water that's been in my pyramid, after 3 days, I really notice that it retains the vibration, and I can notice that. But use your life force, use your Bovis or your pendulum and the life force energy chart, the Bovis, and that'll help you start trusting your intuition and guide you in the right direction, because those are the tools that we use right now in our group to measure the energy of the water. We have discovered that the apex amplifier, the little platform that sits about a foot below the apex, when the water is placed on that, it actually retains the charge. Well, I should say gains the charge a lot faster. So different places in the pyramid, we've tried underneath the seat, like in the center of the pyramid, that catches up quickly actually as well. And so does sitting on the seat, different areas like that, but it's still the apex amplifier that's the area of highest power. So that's the one that I usually drink. If I'll have different jars sitting around, and I'll just go take a couple sips. You don't even need a whole glass, just take a couple sips. And that should
Thank
be
you very much for that. Thank you.
like taking your vitamins.
Lisa, does it matter what color of granite is for grounding purposes?
No, I think all granite does have a grounding charge to it. Different colors resonate for different things. And I prefer the red granite because at the time I was creating I was using Freddie Silva's, what is it? Temple building protocol on how to build a temple, sacred geometry temple outside. And he categorizes crystals as masculine and feminine. And you had to utilize a masculine crystal, which is a lot of the granite crystals. So I had the masculine crystal and then the limestone ones on the perimeter, because that was the female aspect of it. And it was a sun temple, I believe, at the time, but it was powerful. I want to definitely do that again. And I had my Stargate pyramid right in the center of it. And yeah, it was really powerful.
Then you fly away.
Yeah.
The different dimension.
Yeah. So his temple building CD has you, once you create the specific sacred geometry, you have to place your entrance at a certain area. And all it is pretty much a sacred geometry symbol that you draw out and anchor it in place with different crystals. And then you call in the ley lines and you call in the underground water and, the different energies of nature. And it's so powerful.
Such a ritual.
Can the Russian pyramid enhance intelligence? And talk about the relationship with the wizard cap and the dunce cap, and what that has to why the phi angle was used, and what your thought is on the benefits or the result of putting that angle in a hat.
Okay, well, the dunce cap came from it actually came from the witch and wizard hats of the era, but it's attributed to a 13th century Franciscan monk named John Duns Scotus. John is his name, Duns is the town in Scotland. So it's John of Duns in Scotland, John Duns Scotus. He was pretty much he was a contemporary of St. Francis of Assisi and was considered his, they were the two leading intellects in the Catholic Church at the time. But Scotus became interested in trying to figure out why the wizards and witches of the era, wore these hats, and he began to try it himself. And of course, those hats have the exact geometry of the pyramids. So this is just another example of this knowledge being suppressed. But they, the Catholic, he started to achieve, I'll call it a better connection with his higher self. But essentially what happened was he began to develop a theory of a metaphysical God rather than an anthropomorphic God. And that was not going to be, that wasn't taken very well by the Catholic Church. And so they began to vilify his work, the work of the dunce cap. And so they transformed the dunce cap from a method of achieving, a kind of illumination or enlightenment to an object of ridicule. And by the Victorian England time, the dunce cap was used in public schools for slow learners. They'd have to sit in the corner, and it was certainly an object of ridicule. So that was their way of attempting to hide the powers of the witch hat. In terms of intelligence, I mean, your first question, I have more and more difficulty as I learn more to know what intelligence really means to begin with. And so what I will say is, because, I was the outstanding senior boy in my high school class, but that just meant that I followed rules better than anybody else and regurgitated what they wanted me to say. My intuition was totally turned off. So I think I'm much more intelligent now because I'm at least listening to my intuition and the guidance that I'm receiving. So yeah, does it improve your intuition? And absolutely, and your connection. Does it improve my ability to memorize? Maybe, but I don't consider that, which I unfortunately believe is the way we as a society look at intelligence, rather than our ability to think critically and to reason critically. If you're using that definition of being able to recite and memorize, I don't know if it has that much impact, but it certainly does have an impact on my intuition and guides me every day in my life. So.
Thank you.
You know what else has pointy pyramid hats? Meditating gnomes.
That's right.
Oh,
Yes. Same geometry.
Gnome hat.
Yep.
yeah. Amazing.
Mickey Mouse's hat in the classic Sorcerer's Apprentice. And Fantasia, all of them. That same geometry. I've measured it. So yes, they knew about this, and how come we don't? So.
Any other questions?
Have you ever considered to, start new branch in your business of making this point
The pointy hat?
magical hats?
That's a
Well,
good idea.
You can go to Party City and purchase them from them. Their geometry is spot on. So
Really?
yeah,
Are you
oh yeah,
sure?
yeah. If you go to Party, all the birthday hats, the New Year's Eve hats, all of those are
Interesting
all
idea.
that precise geometry. So you don't even have to make your own. Lisa and I did a show on that, actually. Goodness, what was that, about a year and a half ago, I guess, on how to make your own hats. So we showed you how to do that in a video. It's been a long time ago, but it's probably just easier to go to Party City and buy one, to be honest.
Yeah, at least for domestic use.
Yeah.
But imagine if tribe of people will emerge in the public spaces where it's exact geometry heads.
Well,
I wonder if it will make a splash and a shift in the, maybe not, because some people just too blind to see something that is outside the paradigm. The reality.
Oh, it is. Well, yeah, I will anecdotally bring this up. The Pyramid Spiritual Societies movement, which is based in India, it's the largest pyramid meditation organization in the world, but they use the Giese geometry, but they do make these hats based with the Giese geometry, and they sell them, and people I guess do use them to some degree in India. So it's not necessarily a crazy idea. I don't have one that I put on, and it's not a bad idea. I have them in storage for the shows, but I could pull one out and put it on while I'm because it does clearly amplify the effects of the pyramid as well if you wear it inside the pyramid. So it's not a bad idea.
Inside the pyramid. I was thinking about wearing outside the pyramid while
Oh, you
walking
can do that
and
too.
stuff.
You can do that as well. Oh yeah. It's just I'm bringing up another show that we did. We showed that the compounding effects of multiple stacked pyramids, and so if you wear it inside the pyramid, the effects are going to be amplified. That's all.
Right.
So
Thanks for the tip, guys.
yeah.
I'm gonna visit this party show.
Well,
Tina wonders what material is best for making the hats.
you make it out of cardboard.
Cardboard.
We used you could also do it with a couple of sheets of tissue paper. One way to do it, if you're familiar with safety cones, another example of this geometry in our real world. Yes, the orange safety cones. You could go to Home Depot and buy a small one and use that as a template and just wrap it around and then tape it up. That's a simple way to do it because it's easy. But the other way that we did this with cardboard, we had a woman on from England who had figured out how to make pyramids out of cardboard. And she just basically took a template of a simple triangle with the appropriate 2.058 to 1 height to base length ratio. And you could once you have one of those, you could start at a central point and move that triangle around on a piece of cardboard construction paper and draw 4 pyramids and then cut it out and fold it together, and you've got a perfect Russian pyramid. So you could wear that as a hat as well. So there's a whole bunch of different ways of doing it.
You have lots of videos, Charlie, about these Russian pyramids being hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the temples and churches and other areas where you've demonstrated that these items exist?
The impetus for writing a book really came from the fact that I ended up, after I figured out the geometry and did some videos on that, I had 2 people contact me. One was a gentleman named Patrick Koster from the Netherlands. And he said, have you ever looked at the Hindu temples? He said that their slant angle looks to be pretty similar. And I said, wow, how about that? And sure enough, I found this MB ruler online protractor app and I started measuring them. And sure enough, every single one of the Hindu and Buddhist temples have this geometry. So I knew I was onto something. And then another guy from Australia Michael Hoynes wrote me, and he said, I'm making ormus with a small Russian pyramid. And he said, I came across your work. And so I said, well, how did you come up with that idea? And he said, well, there's this hieroglyph from the Temple of Karnak. And I didn't know about that. So all of a sudden I'm saying, wow, this is going to be everywhere. So that's what I ended up doing for the next, 6 months or so. And my spare time, I started looking for this everywhere. But it goes from Hindu and Buddhist temples into the pagodas, the headwear of all of the Hindu deities. War that had this as well. You can go into the Middle East and you'll find the spires in Islamic in the Islamic traditions and in the mosques. You'll find it, even though Jewish architecture, just because of the unique history of the Jewish tradition, there's not as many examples, but a lot of the synagogues had it. The medieval Gothic cathedrals in Europe all have it. You can go to London, all over the world, as a matter of fact, but London is a real hotbed for finding this because the Masons and the secret societies and so forth all learned about this. So you'll find examples in the guild halls in London and the William Wallace Memorial in Scotland and the church at Oxford University, Tower Bridge in London. You can just go on, and it's that way all over the world. And that's what really leads you to the Tartarian Empire. You see this geometry everywhere, and you realize that there had to have been a worldwide civilization that knew about this, and that's what takes you, kind of out of pyramid world, but into the world of alternative, not alternative, true history, as opposed to the fake history that we learn. So some of the things that you come away with are the things we've just mentioned. We had a world with free energy. There seemed to have been an ability to communicate throughout the world without electrical lines or telegraph lines. You didn't, it was all wireless. And the buildings that we now call churches and cathedrals were very likely healing centers that use sound healing and geometry, say, of the pyramid and the steeples and spires of those buildings, along with sacred geometry built into the height, width and so forth, to achieve these healing results. So that's a whirlwind response, but that's why this ultimately last year I decided I need to write a book about this, and hopefully I'll get back on it pretty quickly. But the pictorial side is largely done now. I've got so many different examples from our DNA has it too. I forget about that. That's the most important one of all, perhaps, is that our DNA has this very geometry, and it uses the Fibonacci sequence, which becomes, as I've demonstrated, this very geometry in 3 dimensions. And so it's all tied together.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Dina wonders if there's any specific studies. You had talked about the Russian pyramid increasing your intuition. Do the Russians have empirical evidence? Have they tested psi abilities with pyramids?
There is a chapter, I'm trying to remember the name of the book. Lisa, help me out. I think it's Psychic Abilities Behind the Iron Curtain.
Yeah.
I believe that's it, where Nikolai Kozyrev, who's the father of torsion physics, essentially, he is interviewed in that book for a chapter. And yes, there's reference to studies that they had done inside the Soviet Union. I don't think they were ever published outside, but there's a lot of stuff in that book that tends to point in that direction. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank
I
you.
have that book. We should read some of it online sometime.
Yeah, yeah, maybe even pull up the chapter on Kozarev and so forth. But yeah, I think that see, just to go back again to history, just so everybody understands why we don't know what torsion physics is. This kind of gets back into flat Earth as well, and so forth. It all ends up tying together. But there was an experiment done at the beginning of the 20th century called Michelson-Morley experiment. And Western scientists use that as a reason, rationale, excuse to deny the existence of torsion fields. And so we, as a Western culture, are divorced from this idea that there's an ether out there, and there is an ether, and that ether has, in the palms of my hands, I have enough energy to burn off boil off all of the water and all of the oceans on the planet. We are literally in a seething cauldron of free energy. And all we have to do is to figure out how to tap into it. The pyramid is certainly one way to do that. And along those lines, to talk about pyramid energy, I've mentioned this before, but there's a researcher named Praveen Mohan who's got a YouTube page. He has demonstrated that it's his belief that a lot of the ancient Hindu temples were not actually religious, just like our churches and cathedrals were not religious. They were energy production or power plants. And so we have to think about the world in a whole different way in that respect. Tesla, his Wardenclyffe Tower, used this exact same geometry to produce free energy as well. So the whole area of research that we haven't even begun to explore yet, but suffice it to say, the Russians, when they did the research on energy, indicated that the energy fields that were produced by one of their larger pyramids that they built in Russia produced an energy field that, in order for it to be replicated, would require all the electric generating capacity in the entire country. So, there's clearly a huge potential source here. We don't need to be relying on fossil fuels or even solar or wind, for that matter, which rely on the wind and or the sun. When we know how to harness the torsion fields, such as we do with the pyramids, we could develop that technology, I really do believe, into an infinite source of free energy, as they did in the past.
Yes, I shared the link, Dina, to the psychic discoveries behind the Iron Curtain.
That's it.
And you can tell how important the book is because now it's being sold for $386.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I saw there are used options on there too.
That's right. That's right. That's,
Thank you.
$300. Who's buying this
So-
kind of-
Yeah.
that's like trying to find a copy of On the Jews and Their Lies. That's the suppressed book where it turns out Martin Luther was a major anti-Semite, and this book was used by the Nazis as kind of their blueprint for the Holocaust. But you can only find one copy of that on Amazon now, and it's about that amount of money. I have one, and it's free on the internet if you know where to go look for it, but same idea. So.
Do you think the praying hands, at the heart chakra is
Oh.
something mimicking the pyramid energy?
It matches perfectly. That's in the book. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that measured. And it's
Perfect geometry.
It's exactly right.
Interesting.
Yeah. And all of the symbols. If you put your heads up like this, you
Yeah,
get
the
very
yoga
close.
posture.
Yep. You get all of those. They all have the same basic. Not every picture is going to have it, but yeah, if you find one that looks appropriate, it's very, very close. So, can that be an accident? I don't think so. Once you understand that this was all, everybody knew this stuff. It's built into our, the geometry is also built into our, like the cochlea in our ears. I mean, there are 5 spirals that, we use to hear with. Cones are used in our eyes to see and so forth. So yeah, it's everywhere. All
Yeah, it's
throughout.
funny that you mentioned it. Yesterday, somebody posted in Telegram group that I've following video about the very special person who claimed to be walk in, like a galactic consciousness, that they took over human vessel. Her name is Linda. Profundity Yours, that's her channel. So instead of doing all the things that I was planning to do, I was spent like 4 hours listening to her talks, to her videos, and lots of interesting information, which kind of makes sense. But one of the things that she mentioned is that our physical bodies represent Tesla technology, the one that we crave so much and admire, and that, when they will reveal all these new technologies to all of us, we are this exact technology. So all this, and
Yeah,
just
and
a
that's what
good
yoga.
example.
Yeah, yoga. When you put your body in different positions, you resonate at different frequencies.
Very
Crop
interesting.
circles. When we see crop circles arise, each one is resonating at a different frequency. It's they all have a purpose.
That's right.
Here's kind of a conspiracy question. We talked about the prayer, posed just now.
Right.
What about when this this hand signal, when people pray like that? I don't know, was that something that the Catholic Church instituted? Would that have be like a locking energy? Any ideas?
Closing it off. That's what I feel as soon as I do it. It feels closed off.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
I don't pray that way anymore.
I don't either.
Yeah,
It doesn't,
yeah.
it just feels like it's
Right.
Well,
closing you off.
I think it's Patrigi who says you should cross your fingers, or somehow they cross their fingers and they cross their legs too,
Right.
when they're meditating inside the pyramid. I find it that I receive more energy when I have my hands flat on my lap with my palms facing up.
Yeah.
That's what I usually do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or sometimes I'll actually hold my hands kind of like in a, like this in my lap, and it feels like it's connecting more of a circuit, you can feel the energy change.
Yeah.
So your feet are firmly flat on the ground, not crossing, nothing like that. Because some people recommend, like, in Hinduistic guru, to cross your legs. This is basically a cross-legged, meditation pose, right? For some reason, it's supposed to promote energy flow. Like, I don't know. I don't know the exact reasoning behind this, but yeah, probably doesn't always translate.
Right.
Well, I think it would be fine, if you're sitting on the floor, of course. I see them doing it though in chairs with their legs crossed. And every time I cross my legs, it kind of feels like a disconnect, if I'm in the chair in the pyramid, So I don't know, at least for me, I'm sure it must work for some people, especially if you're sitting on the ground, you'd want to be more comfortable.
Yeah, this is the part of that culture, Indian tradition, to get your root chakra directly connected to the ground. And but most of the Western world is a chair culture. And our hip structure is not very well equipped for this kind of meditation.
Yes, I prefer in the chair, but I do prefer the grounding. So I have, and I don't have it down here, it's upstairs in my bedroom, but I have a grounding mat, a little grounding mat that I usually either put on the floor or I wear a grounding bracelet. Right. And that helps a lot more even, it keeps away, and you can envision it, visualize yourself grounding as well, which is powerful, but I feel like it allows me to focus my attention on other things instead of being grounded, if I just physically ground.
Right.
Lisa, what mat are you using? What's the brand name?
I went to earthing.com.
Yeah.
And bought their items. I know they have the grounding bracelets still, but I don't know if they have the little mat. It used to be just a little pet mat is what they sold. It was like for $30.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't see it on there anymore, but they have other things. They have pillowcases, they have all kinds of things. And I actually at one point just made something myself. I ruined my mattress though. I went and got some aluminum screen is all I could, and taped it to the bed with some aluminum tape.
Oh, made your own earthing sheet, huh?
Yeah. But that was a fail. 'Cause then every time you laid on it, it would pull away from the tape, and then
Yeah.
you'd get pricked from the metal pieces from the wire. Yeah, so that wasn't on there very long, but
That's funny.
but I have my tester. I'm going to do some more studies with this, with the pyramid too, and grounding. You know, I have my my meter here too, where I can
Cool.
read my own, not only the electricity levels and stuff in your home, because that's what it's for, but you can read your connection too, and how the grounding is affecting you.
I have one of those. I think I just have to figure out how. So you're using something like this. I use this under my keyboard, but you use this under your pyramid?
Yeah.
Just on? Oh.
Yep. I have one too.
Yeah, I feel it. Try it. I feel it's a lot more powerful than just the pyramid alone. You know, the pyramid's already powerful, but that's going to give you a better, totally different, I think, feel for it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Can you repeat?
I'll put it in the chat. The website.
Earthing.
Earthing.
They have a
Earthing.com.
documentary.
Yeah,
Earthing.com. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's another, maybe that's an episode we should do, is talk about the importance of grounding and how it affects the pyramid, because I used, I used to talk about that. I actually have a presentation already put together on it. So
Right.
You're up next week, Lisa.
yeah.
There you go. I guess I'd like to just follow up a little bit on some of the comments before about, the history and what's happened with knowledge of sacred geometry and so forth in the context of mainstream religion. I grew up as a Lutheran and in church every Sunday. My brother's a retired Lutheran minister, and so when I started getting into this and seeing this in all the steeples and the churches and all, I called them and I said, do you guys in seminary learn anything about the history of your architecture and the geometry and what it does and so forth? All of that has been totally lost in our mainstream seminaries. He was nice enough to give me a contact for the research librarian at Luther Seminary in St. Paul. And so I used them to see if there was any history of church architecture that would deal with sacred geometry and so forth. And it's all totally lost. I've even talked to steeple manufacturers, which is, kind of a dying art, to be honest, because there's not that much demand for it anymore. But he was nice enough. I won't name the company because I'm not trying to impugn anyone's reputation, but that individual told me that no one thinks about the geometry. They look at the aesthetics, and they just want the steeple to look pretty and be really tall and thin, but they have no idea why it was there, other than or to put a steeple on a church anymore, other than for aesthetics. So it's truly another example where this glorious history where we've known this geometry and its interplay with our our world around us has been frozen out of the knowledge base for our religious traditions. And I'm sure the same thing is true whether we go to Hinduism or Buddhism or Islam or wherever. They're probably doing it. Their architecture is just based on what looks good. And the Hindus may have an idea, because there's a ton of Hindu temples that are built around the world that are contemporary. Like in the US, there's probably, 50 to 100 that I was able to find, and they all have this geometry. So they know that geometry is significant, but they don't probably know why. They just copy it. But even the Lutheran Church, the Mormons, also, just to finish up, I mean, they were founded by Masons. They knew this. It was in the Salt Lake Temple in Salt Lake. The spires all have this geometry. But I looked at, they have a history of their churches, pictorial history. And so it was a great opportunity to look at least at one church tradition. And by around the 1930s, all of a sudden, this geometry disappears from their architecture, as it did in mainline Protestantism and Catholicism as well. So they've all started to go to these really tall, steeples for aesthetics, rather than, there were old Mormon churches in some of the smaller towns in Utah, for example, that had bell towers with this. And they actually had rooms up there for like Bible study or prayer, because I guess they knew that this geometry was going to magnify and amplify, their prayers. So, but all of that technology, they had to replace that particular steeple, and when they replaced it, the little area for sitting inside was gone. It's not there anymore. So, it's a tragedy, but this is the kind of information that's being lost, and slowly, hopefully, by me, and hopefully, others are going to take this up, to find it. We can rediscover it.
Well, thank you. That went by super fast. Does anyone have any final questions? Tina?
This is for Lisa. Lisa, I had asked you this once casually, and I didn't write down what you said, but what would be a layman's description for scalar waves? If I would, somebody who's never heard of that before, and I'm trying to explain scalar waves in just everyday language, how would you explain that?
Well, I think Charlie put it this way too, is it's the language that your DNA uses to communicate.
Okay.
So, that's the most important thing is, it's for some reason, as we live down here, our body forgets how to heal itself, and it starts to deteriorate. We're programmed with that. Our body knows how to heal itself, but it seems to forget. And so these scalar waves really remind your body on how to heal again, without having to go through the subconscious blocks that immediately just goes right there and starts reminding your body what it's supposed to do again.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Just to try to expand on that a little bit, because I think it's so important for people to get this, grasp this idea. Creation is like octaves on the keyboard on a piano. And so sound is going to be in one range of octaves, but then a few more octaves up, you're going to find the light spectrum. And there's studies that show that, for example, blue, a color blue light is going to relate to a certain key or frequency in the audio spectrum. Well, similar to that, you just have to remember that what we perceive in sound and light are just an infinitesimally small portion of the entire range of frequencies. But they are all, because it's an orderly universe, they are all in octaves or multiples of each other. So scalar waves are, as Lisa pointed out, they're in a frequency range that our DNA easily accepts, uses, transmits, and receives with. So, but they are nothing more than, many octaves higher than the sound that we're listening to. So, or the color or the, what we see in the visible range. So this is all scaled. It's all in octaves. It's all orderly and measured. And that's what, that's my real excitement in my life right now is to try to get some sort of a model put together so people can see how all this fits together, but it does.
Yes. I just have one more thing to add. Everybody, it was great. We had all the questions ready for us. I'm sure we'll have to do this again too. I'm sure people have a lot of questions, but Charlie and I have a lot of questions too. And that's why we created the Pyramid Science Foundation. We want to research pyramid energy and prove to people that yes, there is something to this. And we feel that the proof, it's really important to show the science behind it. That's going to be what's going to open the door to a lot of people and for them to believe in this simple healing technology. Healing doesn't have to be hard, and it shouldn't be hard to come by. And we provide all that information here, but we need your help. If you can donate, please donate. We will definitely put it to good use. So that's the whole thing behind the Pyramid Science Foundation.
And it's not just money to donate. If you can donate time or talents, or, Erica, for example, is helping us with animations and so forth, and she's doing that for free, so so anything like that you can help with, we will put your efforts to good work. There's no doubt about it.
That's for sure.
A question about your pyramid.
Go ahead.
So when I put my capstone on, I had to cut my zip ties. And so I used to like to move the pyramid from one side of the room to the other so I could be under it when I was working sometimes, but it doesn't stay together as well now. So I actually I made a little bra for it so that the poles wouldn't fall down when the capstone popped off when I scooched it over. If I glued the base together, would that have a negative effect on it? I was wondering if that would help it at all. I mean, I was thinking about getting an amplifier, but I was going to wait till you weren't so busy, because I know you're swamped right now in terms of all the orders, Lisa. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking Charlie.
Well, I was thinking about getting an amplifier, and that might solve the problem.
Yes.
But
yeah, the Apex amplifier plate actually gives it more stability. If you're going to be moving it around all the time, I mean, if you're not planning to take it down, I would recommend gluing it. I mean, that's going to be the best for you. It's not going to affect the energy. It'll actually keep it together better, because it is easy for it to just, we want it to be like that. We want it to be able to be easily assembled and disassembled, because a lot of people travel with them and take them with them, or, use it for their practice and for their home. So,
okay.
yeah, but it won't hurt it at all if you use it. It's better than having your capstone fall on your head or something too. So.
Thanks. And then tuning forks, would that be contraindicated to use those or a bowl underneath the pyramid? Would it help?
No.
It would be better.
Be great.
Okay, thanks.
Be fantastic. There, any sort of sound tool like that is going to be amplified inside the pyramid, and we have some evidence that it works really well. Mark Atwood has. Who really helped get Lisa and me started earlier this year and really propelled our business. He had a friend over who was sitting under the pyramid who had arthritis, severe pain in their hand and with arthritis. And the guy was sitting inside the pyramid. Mark struck a tuning fork, held it inside the pyramid, and the guy's pain went away right away. I mean, just like that. So those are the kinds of things that we find. And so, singing bowls, tuning forks, all of that.
Well, you
So
mentioned
even-
bells and a bell tower.
Yeah.
I wonder if going back, that was the purpose of putting the bell under.
Well, I forgot to mention that one. All of the major.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, all the major bell towers in the world have this geometry as well.
Yeah.
And the best one, I've actually been there, it's been a long time ago, was the San Marco bell tower in Venice. But most of the major bell towers around the world that we see were modeled after that. There's one in Birmingham, England called Old Joe. It's at the University of Birmingham. I think I think Syracuse University, I believe it is, has one. There's one out in one of the California universities as well. But they're all based on that geometry, you bet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also,
And
too,
I
I was
wonder
gonna
what
say-
tone, oh, sorry, what tone the bell plays, if it's a solfeggio or if it has any kind of.
Good question.
Do you
Well,
know?
I don't know the answer to that. But it's a good question. I would imagine that since they knew about all of this stuff and we don't,
Right.
they were smart enough to keep their tuning with the solfeggio, all of the ancient singing bowls and so forth. They're all tuned to 432A, concert A. So, or on that scale. So they knew about this, and I wouldn't at all be surprised if the bells weren't tuned in the same way.
Yeah, that's interesting because they also had the gargoyles up on the church steeples, because when they would ring the bell, the gargoyles would grab the negative energy and cleanse it. So that's why a lot of the gargoyles had water coming out of their mouths as well. It was like a cleansing effect to the energy.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. So there you go. Yeah.
really.
I thought gargoyles were satanic, distortions of beautiful Tartarian structures.
well.
That's right. That's right. That's
I
right.
don't know. And I was going to tell Julie, you can actually even empower your singing bowl more, or sound pipes, or tuning forks. If you get a caduceus coil and hook it up to an amplifier, you could actually hook a microphone up to it as well. And you could sing, even sing through it, or, whatever. It's going to go through the caduceus coil and produce scalar waves and make it even more powerful.
Right. Right. That's true.
That'll help with body pain.
Yes.
No idea.
Are you
haven't
saying
had any
that
luck.
when we, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Julie. Go
No,
ahead.
I'm done. Mhm.
So it just struck me right now, after what you said, Lisa, is it correct that when we use tuning forks, for example, or like any frequency producing devices inside the pyramid, besides, so basically we're dealing with scalar waves as well?
Well, you can hook it up to the caduceus coil.
Oh, you have to amplify
You
through
would-
caduceus coil. for
Yeah,
that.
well, you would have to get an amplifier and be able to plug a microphone into it and have that microphone, somewhere near you. So when you were inside the pyramid, that microphone and the amplifier would be hooked up to the caduceus coil. When you would sit inside the pyramid and play your singing bowl or hit the tuning fork, that sound would go into the microphone and travel through the caduceus coil and play scalar waves in those frequencies that you're generating. So it'll be
So
even
it's
more
caduceus
powerful.
coil that produces scalar waves.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting.
Yep.
The reason why I'm asking is just because I sort of deviated from the traditional biofield tuning approach that you. Maybe I should make a like short trial session on you guys.
Okay. All right.
See your opinion on that. So what I do is just sitting inside the pyramid and playing, striking the 174, for example. It's the best, the most popular one frequency to sift through the biofield using a hologram container, remote healing, that's what I'm doing on myself, my family. And recently I asked my sister, who's a very sensitive to energies person, who lives back in overseas in Belarus. And I was able to track whatever effect was produced by using this method with her feedback over the phone. And I was really relieved and delighted to know that there is significant effect, actually. Like, for example, I feel when I was treating one area of biofield, I see my heart chakra, vibrating, or I see my chakra in my knee vibrate, this kind of things. So it would be curious.
Yeah,
And if there's any scalar wave involved at the same time, it would be really profound, don't you think?
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely. Mhm.
yeah.
Do you have any videos of how to do the coil with the amplifier, Lisa? Have you made any videos or?
Charlie and I just made a video, and he has pictures that in that video as well to show you how he hooks up the amplifier.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was
On the
done,
YouTube page.
I don't know, probably no more than about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think
Thank
so
you.
too. Mhm.
I'll find it.
And it's on YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's on the YouTube channel.
So if a person is in the pyramid and we want to incorporate, say, a singing bowl
Right.
while treating the individual in the pyramid,
Mhm.
can I play the bowl outside of the pyramid? And do I have to have the microphone next to the bowl to have that scalar? Or will it just work on its own without the microphone? I mean, logistically, how do we, do I have to hold the bowl inside the
You just have
pyramid?
to- if you're going to use if you want to do the scalar waves, you have to use the caduceus coil, of course. So you would have to have the caduceus coil hooked up to a microphone. And the only way to do that is really through an amplifier.
Right.
So you would have to have it hooked up to the amplifier, then plug that microphone into the amplifier. And then it doesn't really matter where you're at, because that caduceus coil it would encompass the whole entire room, not just
Right.
in the pyramid. But if you put the coil, that's where the waves are coming from. So if you put the coil in the pyramid with the person that's being healed, it will amplify it even more because of the amplification properties of the pyramid.
And just play the bowl, because some of my bowls are
Yeah.
kind of large,
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
some people
yeah,
have so many, they sit them all on the floor and,
Yeah.
it's like they're playing drums or something. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
So.
you'd have a whole symphony through the caduceus coil,
that's right.
Cool.
Yeah. And that would be
Yes.
awesome to experience too, because you'd be able to physically hear it as well, and just hearing that genuine, clean, healing frequency with your ears on top of the scalar waves through your body. That would be super powerful. It'd probably be like a didgeridoo healing or something, even more
Probably.
powerful.
Or a gong healing. No,
Yes, yes,
like getting a massage.
yes.
I just posted some links to the
Oh, good.
2 most recent videos for the caduceus coil. So
Awesome.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Alice.
yeah, you're welcome.
You know what we should do for the next, I think we should do a Q&A every once in a while. Maybe for the next one, we'll just start asking people, on the regular live streams to add some questions in the chat, and we can save those questions for the Q&A or something if we don't have a lot of time to answer them then.
Cool. All right. Are there any other questions, or should we wrap this one up?
Yeah.
Let's finish. Thank you
Okay.
so much,
Thank
Paul,
All
you
right.
very
for
much.
information.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
everybody,
you
for
for
joining
for
us.
being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Love to
hosting.
talk to you all.
Okay. Bye-bye all.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.